Everyone. I'm happy to be here today to talk with you about our mobility initiatives. In particular, we're going to be talking about the Rochester Rapid Transit line that's in development, known as the Link. So first, just a short bit of context. As many of you are aware, a substantial amount of population and employment growth is at the heart of the DMC initiative. And in order to accommodate that growth, we really need to diversify the options that are available for people to move in, out, and around downtown. So that mode shift, as we call it, is shown in the diagram at the bottom of this slide. And what I'll highlight there is, even though we anticipate slightly more cars actually driving downtown in 2040, car trips become a smaller percentage of the overall trips, while transit, carpooling, walking, biking are targeted to increase at higher rates. So what we're here to talk about today is that navy blue bar that you see that shows the increase in that transit share, which is anchored by our bus rapid transit corridor investment. So if we invest in these high quality mobility options, here's a reminder of the key benefits to the city: improved air quality, more available parking, less congestion, and also avoiding an estimated $1 billion in new parking structures that would otherwise need to be built. So turning to specifically to the benefits of bus rapid transit, the core benefits of this mode are improvements in travel time, traffic safety, air quality, as well as the human health benefit in terms of an increase in physical activity. And this BRT corridor is also a key part of reaching the greenhouse gas reduction targets for the city as a whole. So what's our request to the board here today? So you as a board have been asking us to target a first-class experience for all users of the bus transit corridor. And that experience is expected to be equal or better to driving a single occupant vehicle downtown and parking. So that's something the team has continued to focus on as the design has evolved and progressed. And in the process of doing that iterative and continuous evaluation of user experience, the team has identified a few additional areas that we can focus on, which will impact the project definition, timeline, and budget. And that's what we're here to talk with you about today. And so to walk us through that, I'm joined here today by Deputy City Administrator Cindy Steinhauser. And with that, I'll welcome Cindy, who will walk us through the details.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. And thank you to the board for, can you hear me? Very good. Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you to the board for letting me present today. I also want to acknowledge that DMC Project Manager Jarrett Hubbard is also here and can help answer any questions. Jarrett helped prepare today's materials. As Catherine shared, we want to talk about how we continue to evaluate this project and how we can deliver a high experience that is as good or better than choosing to drive a personal vehicle in our community. As has been shared in prior updates, we're striving towards this goal, and to date, our design has included amenities that we believe not only achieve this, but also includes equity and dignity in accessing this service. Now, in our latest iteration, we continue to identify ways in which we can design a project that, as you have directed, is designed to that higher standard. Designing a legacy project that looks, feels, and operates as well in year 20 or 30 as it does in year 1. We think that some of the things that we can include can add to this expectation, and so today we want to recommend additional design enhancements to achieve this. Specifically, we want to talk about enhancements to the St. Mary's and 2nd Street stations, as well as discuss the East Terminus. Next slide, please. So as we said, there's 3 areas for the focus of our conversation. It's about those in design enhancements and pedestrian connections to the stations, talking about modification of the alignment of the eastern terminus of the route, and also talking about additional infrastructure that's needed for the project that we'd like to incorporate in our FTA request. I do want to mention that it's really important to remember that this proposed project is proposed to be funded with transportation funding. These dollars cannot be used for other non-transportation related projects. So this is a look at the latest design. And while this is a rendering of the St. Mary's station, it's our recommendation that this design is carried across the entire project at all 7 platforms. Unified design is critical in that consistent user experience, creating confidence, whether you're a longtime resident or someone on their first trip to Rochester. It also offers a more of an experience that's more similar to light rail over bus system. So specific enhancements at St. Mary's include a second vertical circulation on the south side, which is the eastbound platform, that also provides a connection to the new pedestrian subway system, allowing someone to get into a climate-controlled environment directly from the platform. The plaza enhances opportunities for multimodal connections and allows neighbors to walk from the north to walk through to 2nd Street. And the real potential for the plaza will be realized when adjacent parcels on at the 2nd Street location are developed, as we know is what often happens with rapid transit projects. They become a place to linger, connect with others, and it's an amenity that was first imagined in the original DMC development plan. Again, at 2nd Street, we've carried through this design from St. Mary's. We've added a vertical circulation building to the eastbound platform, providing direct access to the existing pedestrian subway. We've provided and solved for that connection that you asked for at 2nd Street. I'll pause here briefly to see if there's questions related to the design enhancements.
I'd like to make one quick one. You know, from the beginning, I've said this is a transit experience. It's not just about what vehicle we use, but can we give a person a faster way to get to work? Can we give them a more financially practical? And can we give them climate control to the degree it's possible? I see a really big step here where you're right in the station itself, giving a way to get into the subway, which is great. I still want to challenge you to think about even more control on that. It still looks more like you're protecting from rain than wind. So I just want to challenge that. I also want us to just continue to think that while there will be a stop on the west end, we're trying to build a transit village, not just a station. I know everybody understands this, but we're not trying to build a parking ramp that people can get a place to get a transit vehicle. We're trying to build a transit village that has integrated places in this. So hopefully we're continuing, and I know we are, this effort to do more than just build a parking ramp there. But I definitely see this climate control thing, and it's hugely important. Anyone else? Okay, keep moving.
Great, thanks. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the proposed alignment of the east terminus. So this slide shows the current approved route, which is proposed to end at 4th Street near the Government Center. Our team would like to pursue a modification to this route that considers alignment of the east terminus further south near an area around what would be 6th Street and 3rd Avenue. I would note that today we're not asking for approval on an alignment change, but rather to share with you that we've conducted an assessment of the area conditions and opportunities, and enough that we think a proposed alternative is worth exploring and designing. And based on your direction and the direction of City Council at next week's study session, we'd like to further explore this idea, begin engaging the neighbors around this concept in order to advance both the discussion and the design. Next slide, please. We believe it makes sense to explore this alternative because it first and foremost would bring service closer to residential neighborhoods and increase the neighborhood walkshed to this service area. It also serves as an opportunity for catalyzed growth. This slide really helps show you better understand what that walkshed could be improved. The orange lines represent what the current walkshed is with the east terminus located at 4th Street near the Government Center. The yellow slide, by shifting it 2 blocks south, the new walkshed would incorporate both the orange lines as well as the yellow lines that you see on this slide. Next slide, please. Lastly, our assessment shows that a minor shift in location could support the revitalization of the 60 acres. And so on this graphic, you'll see the blue dot, which shows the current proposed location of the east terminus, and then the orange-red dot, which is further into the site, that shows the proposed area. As has been previously shared, we recognize that there's a direct correlation between rapid transit systems and the growth and development that occur. You know, in May of last year, this board enthusiastically supported the redevelopment of this 60 acres of old industrial site. The council also unanimously supported this. And so we believe that the impact of the redevelopment of this site is significant for this project, as it will create over 1,500 housing units, 50% of which are estimated to be affordable housing, where transit options are critical and promote equity and affordable living principles. We also see that the activity driven from the development of this, whether it's office or retail or lodging, creates opportunity for additional riders to the system, as well as the obvious of increasing the value to the site. So in addition to helping strengthen neighborhoods, this activates opportunities of thousands of new users to the BRT who might not otherwise use the system due to the distance of an East Terminus located at 4th Street. I'll pause.
Could we
Questions?
pause for a moment on, so you've done on, I want to stop on this East Terminus site. Have you presented your part of it so far?
Yes.
Okay, so, one of the things that I think we should be mindful of is that when you're a board made up of people who are partly not from the community every day, is that ideally these decisions are deeply influenced by what's the discussion locally. And Mayor and Council President, I wonder if you could just give us some insight in the perspective on this, and also maybe from Mayo and other employers' perspectives, what we're hearing on that. Give us some context about this. Are you comfortable with that, Mayor and Council President?
Brooke, do you want to start and
Go
talk about how they started with the city council?
Well, in the past, the council has been very supportive of the concept. I think that some of these changes, we had briefing sessions the last couple of weeks to get us up to speed on what the additional improvements to the stations and what this extension of a loop might mean financially and impact-wise, and having better access to this downtown waterfront Southeast Master Plan. And I think that we're still evolving on what that could mean. And I know that it's helpful to think about this work from at least some of my colleagues' perspective as the first phase of rapid transit, and that there would absolutely be opportunity to build on this and make sure we have access to other areas in our community to bring downtown. So I think that there's quite a bit of support, and we really want this to move forward. There's been so much work to get to where we are today that we want to see it be successful. And so just a couple thoughts. Mayor, what about you?
Okay.
Sure, and I'll just add to that I was thrilled with the change, to be honest, for a whole number of reasons, not the least of which is I was very concerned about the concept of eventually bringing bus rapid transit on Broadway. I think this aligns with some streets back off Broadway, a couple blocks, and will allow for this to be in a neighborhood and new development area that, it has been mentioned, will grow and provide a lot more ridership than I think the traditional one that would have perhaps gone down Broadway. I do think there is some concern about the increased cost. I know the staff has talked a lot about being able to perhaps get more federal money to help offset the increases. But I at least have heard from some of the city council members that the hope is that the end users, which just bluntly are primarily Mayo Clinic staff, at least at the beginning phase, that there will be talk about how we can divide the costs of any increase so that it's not just purely borne on the community members. So that has been one issue that's been raised. But I'm very excited about this change and hope we can move forward with this.
Great, really helpful. Other thoughts?
Mr. Chair, there are, Mr. Campbell has his hand up, as does Commissioner Tyne.
Thanks. Jim, and then the Commissioner.
You're on mute, Jim.
Thank you. I totally agree with what the mayor just had to say. Since the last board meeting, I've spent quite a bit of time driving through this area. When I think about the development that's going to occur on the Kmart side and the Ampey side, to me, it's sort of the second coming of the Ford project in St. Paul. This is a huge opportunity for the development of Southeast Rochester. And then when you look at the adjoining neighborhoods, to be able to open up Southeast Rochester and put rapid transit in there, I think is very exciting. I'm thrilled that you're suggesting this change. The west terminus and the stations going to the west have been obvious all along. But the east is something that's, yet to be developed, but this provides huge opportunity for us going forward.
Great. Commissioner?
Okay, so I completely understand the logic of what we're doing or what we're proposing to do here. I just want to comment on the processes and that, the train has literally left the station. We've been working on this for a while now. And when we're talking about resources, the county has spent a decent amount of resources discussing how we would access and utilize the previously proposed station at 4th Street by the Government Center. And I just wish that if we're going to make changes like this, that we wouldn't bother with discussing it in detail until we were firm. Because I mean, those are, the 4th Street station works great for the county and all that stuff, but I completely agree that the 6th Street station works better for the project. We spent a lot of resources, a lot of time discussing how we were going to help access that 4th Street station with the Skyway and all that stuff. And it seems like it was resources wasted. So I just wanted to make that comment on the process, that maybe we could avoid that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That's a really good point. And to underscore that too, I just want to remind people, we're not taking a vote on this specific today, and that local conversation can continue to go forward. It's super helpful for us to get this overview, but also I understand your point, Commissioner, that let that conversation evolve there. Okay, so
Mr. Baker has his hand up.
I'm
as
sorry.
well. And why don't you drop the slide, whoever's managing.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I just want to add, I guess fundamentally, one of my beliefs joining any new organization or the board is continuity is important. And as I was briefed joining this, there was a lot of discussion around this project and its importance, and it was fairly clear to see why. And so this makes all the sense in the world. I guess, Commissioner, I do understand, rework is always frustrating, and it's unfortunately too often a part of almost every big construction project. And I've been in the part of that a million times, and so I understand that. And then, of course, I think we all agree getting it right is a lot more important, right, in the end, because it's going to be a lot of money either way, and we want to make sure the value. What I've heard from the very beginning that I think makes great sense is there's a real focus on rider experience. And too often where I've seen projects like this fail is the rider isn't included. It's just assumed magically they will appear. And that if the fact that we are trying to understand the experience, and I think the quote was, make this even more attractive than driving a vehicle and parking in downtown and then somehow finding your way to wherever your work site is. I think that's exactly the goal. And if we're successful there, you're going to see this be a very successful project. And the ones that go fallow are the ones that are, well, we do this and buildings will magically appear and all this stuff will happen and we'll put the station over here because it's easier, et cetera. And some of the light rail, frankly, decisions made in the Twin Cities, I think were driven from the wrong viewpoint. And so I think that's excellent. The only other thing I'll say is, and I don't know how to say this in the best way, I mean, all of the Mayo team are also citizens, right, and taxpayers in the county. And I mean, I don't know that there's any difference, right? They're one and the same in many ways and well, in all ways. And so I think doing this makes a lot of sense, and it's the best way we can create, I think, more space downtown is really understanding those who are parking every day. And it does then leave room for patients and others as Mayo expands and other businesses expand. We want to draw in more customers who are going to be by nature more temporary and more episodic.
Okay, thank you
So I
very
think
much.
it makes all the sense in the world.
Member Wheelock and the council president. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll try to be brief because I know the clock is ticking and we have a longer day ahead of us here, which I'm excited about. But I just think we're walking this delicate balance about time and budget versus being smart and forward thinking and maximizing the public benefit of these public investments. So I absolutely am supportive of keeping the work moving forward while we also take a look at increasing our service area to this nearby residential population and enhancing the development attractiveness of the site, particularly to the south of this proposed station. I am struck by the chair's earlier comment about not just rain, but wind and just kind of the comfort and usability of these public investments. So I would really encourage the city and to the extent applicable, the county staff as well as the EDA staff to think about what the ramifications would be for the site plan for any development south of this, so that there is kind of connectivity that is comfortable for people to traverse that big development site to get to the station, and as well, any improvements with public or private dollars around the site in the existing neighborhood to make that walkability to the station enhanced where there is an opportunity to do that. I just think we expect people to walk to the station in sub-zero temperatures and in rainstorms, and the easier you can make that for them, that rider experience that Member Baker was talking about, the greater the use will be, and therefore the greater the public benefit. So I look forward to the tension about time and budget when you come back, and as well want to understand what the attractiveness would be for federal dollars if that split is changed and how much that split changes for total project funding. Thank you.
Member Williams asked a question and a comment about whether what implication this has for dollars we can get from our federal application.
Go ahead,
Did I
Patrick.
get that right, Paul?
Yeah, we are prepared to answer that question
Yeah.
as well. And I just wonder if Council President, her hand is up. And
I'm sorry, Council President, I missed that there. Go ahead.
Well, now I'm gonna disrupt the thinking just a little bit, so don't lose your train of thought, Patrick.
Okay.
Absolutely love Pam's comment about walkability and access to the stations themselves, because we can design the best stations ever, and if people can't get to them, it's not going to matter. I just wanted to clarify, the reason I was a little hesitant in speaking for the council is because I haven't talked to all my colleagues in a public setting since we've heard about these changes. We've just had those little briefing sessions, so I didn't want to speak for everyone until after we've had that public opportunity to comment. So that just a little perspective there.
That's a great point.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just say,
Go ahead.
To be clear, we are not asking you to authorize this realignment. This is introducing the conversation for public discussion, city council, with the county board, with the community. We fully understand that when we have more eyes on this, we'll have a better outcome in terms of the recommendation and the decision. But simply introducing it and advancing it, we feel we wouldn't want to do without your support in opening up this conversation. So to the commissioner's point, we fully understand that there's implications to the thinking that's been going on around the location at the government center, and we totally get it that there's massaging to be done with this potential realignment, and we're not asking you to approve the alignment as much as allowing us to introduce and advance it for further refinement in the community. To the question, and I think we should use the screen for this, the question that Mr. Williams asked about costing and cost sharing. Just a few final slides, and I think maybe if we could look at slide 14, which is the comment that Member Wheelock asked about timing. So I think it's important to acknowledge that we recognize there's a timing adjustment, but there are parts of the project that we can keep at pace while we're doing this consideration and this potential modification. So we can dive into this if we want to. And then slide, I believe 15 talks about the financial piece. So Cindy, if you would address that.
Sure, absolutely. And I would just note on the timing, by the only section we see being impacted is that environmental reviews, 106 and NEPA. All other components, we don't anticipate additional time being added to them. But in terms of the budget, you know, originally we had estimated this project to be around 114 million, and the local share was proposed at 58.7 million. We believe these are all eligible costs. What we're sharing with you today, including some of the infrastructure needed over at West Transit Village that we didn't have a chance to get to, but I think you're aware of. And that is, they're all eligible costs that we believe the FTA would be receptive to us incorporating into a new share coming from them. It would adjust our local match to be approximately 40% if we were able to work successfully, negotiate with the FDA that our local share remained at that 58.7 million. I would say that we believe we are in a very healthy place to make this ask of FTA, not only because of the local commitment we have on this project where we're at in the project, but also the unprecedented amount of federal funding that's available for projects such as this at the federal level. And so, again, we will have better numbers coming back once we're able to go to the next iteration of design documents and getting estimates based on your concurrence and the council's concurrence with advancing what we've seen today.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'll just make one final point as we move on that. While there is discussion on the east end, my full understanding is that we have consensus on the west end to move forward. And what's so exciting about thinking about whatever alignment we do on the east end is this connectivity issue, the ability of creating a transit village, not a bus stop, is a big idea. And we've said from the beginning, we don't want to build parking ramps, we want to build transit villages. So we have that potential now in place on the west end. We're now looking at this on the east end, and I see a huge victory for using the transit to move people where they need to get and to do the sort of community building that we're hoping to do. So it sounds great. So thank you very much for this. We've had a good discussion, probably deeper than we thought, but it really helps out the context for us. So Patrick, do you want to pick us up from there?
Yeah, just so you see the next steps, intentionally have a similar or really same content for discussion at City Council next week. And to the Council President's point, she was a bit circumspect because there hasn't been a conversation at City Council formally about this. And then further conversations in the community with many organizations and partners and community members, and then advancing project design and coming back to this board and City Council with a formal recommendation about the project definition, timeline, budget, and funding strategy. So the last slide is simply just the resolution in front of you is to direct us to take on this evaluation and to come back with you for the project definition, timeline, budget, and funding strategy. So,
okay, so we have resolution C in the packet. It's for approving adjustments to the application as you see there on the slide. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'll move approval, Carlson.
Second.
Very good. Is there any discussion? Okay, Kayla, do you want to call the roll?
Certainly. Member Baker,
Aye.
Member Campbell,
Aye.